What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want? God damn it. What do you want?
I have to go.
This Diwali, we are getting presented two clear cash grabs that are basically capitalizing on the box office success of their predecessors and nothing more. I think that in terms of choices, the only saving grace is that we have got two different genres, a full-on masala action film with a bunch of stars and a horror comedy that seems to be the flavor of 2024. However, when there is an active pursuit by Maddock to attempt to dive deep on the folklore and tales of different states of the country, the franchise of Bhool Bhulaiyaa seems to be on a Manjulika tape recorder so that it can bait the audience with callbacks of the first film. What becomes clearly evident from the trailer of Bhool Bhulaiyaa 3 is that it has heavily shifted its pitch and theme to become a slapstick comedy rather than a blend of horror and humor. While watching the trailer, it made me really come to the conclusion that the way this movie can become a winner from a content point of view is only if the origin story of the spirit is compelling and genuinely haunting. I know that there are many nostalgia merchants who keep on referencing the additions of Bhool Bhulaiyaa being unnecessary while showcasing how and why the first film was so special. The first Bhool Bhulaiyaa, the official remake of the 1993 Malayalam film Mani Chitratada, was so special not only because of the humor elements that were integrated by Priyadarshan so seamlessly, but because the film explored the genre of horror by making the discussion scientific. The film explored the condition of dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder in the case of Avni's obsession with Manjulika. The legend of the dancer who performed for the king with Sashidhar, her co-dancer, intrigued Avni. As is the case with old tales and kings getting what they want, the king killed the co-dancer on the night of Durgashtami and imprisoned Manjulika. Any successor of the royal lineage would not be spared, and the spirit of the dancer was concealed on the third floor of the Mahal. What presumably seemed like a horror movie with the case of paranormal elements and spirits actually was nothing but a smokescreen to explore the fields of psychiatry. That's what made the film so special, because the fluff was entertaining, but when it got serious, it compelled you to think and consider it beyond just a regular horror comedy. There was a lot of pressure when the sequel was announced, and the replacement of Akshay Kumar with Kartik Aaryan and a completely new tale, while still holding on to that name Manjulika, was somewhat of an adjustment period for the audience. Even though from a storytelling point of view, the film paled in comparison to the first film, it was hugely successful due to the respite it brought to the audience just after the pandemic. And I have to confess, it was the conviction of Tabu who, even with a weak origin story of the spirit, spooked us with her act. The case of black magic, twin sisters and a wronged spirit was flimsy, but Tabu brought such a gravitas to the villain arc that it papered over the cracks of a mediocre horror comedy. But what happens when even the sequel is successful? You churn out as much as you can until the entire rust of the franchise is dry. Much like how you see with the Cop universe. You add more elements, more actors while almost neglecting continuity in its entirety, hoping that people will tune in because of the recall value of the franchise. So when the trailer of the third installment dropped today, my expectations were as low as possible. I mean, I was not expecting to be even mildly entertained. And what the third installment showcases is another mixed bag that does not make me really hopeful of the Bollywood offerings this Diwali. But let's talk about what I liked and absolutely disliked, and please do give me your thoughts on the trailer in the comments below too. So at the end of the sequel, the spirit of Anjulika instructs the family to abandon the mansion as the matter needs to be resolved between the two sisters, ending with apparently attacking the sister in the locked room of the Mahal. This, however, the third film, seems to be a reboot with the spirit or the name being utilized for merely callback purposes. रक्तघात के इतिहास का वो काला सच जहाँ सिंहासन के लालच में सदियां बीत गई. Manje, the tale of the relentless pursuit of the throne and power and the legend of what transpired for that throne echoes fiercely even today. So something has happened, I only assume this from the trailer, that includes Manjulika and a king and someone being killed or massacred for the throne. Raktaghat probably being the Mahal of the same royal family. We see Vidya shouting the name Manjulika, but I have to be very honest regarding both these acts of shouting the name in both the teaser and trailer. They do seem very over the top. but not even the slightest bit scary. And this is consistent with Vidya's shouting and expressions throughout the trailer versus the demonic presence she showcased in the first film, which honestly brought chills to my spine. I don't know whether I was younger, but it's still scary when I see it. We don't mention Shobna, by the way. She's the goat, but Vidya killed it too. Kartik is again presented as Roo Baba with a montage of him dancing in almost an identical looking studio where he did his Bhool Bhulaiyaa 2 hook step. I don't know who needs to hear this, but the styling, choreography and setup of Kartik's dance numbers now just seem to look identical to one another. A dark studio with dark clothes and dark shades and mostly doing footwork. Bhool Bhulaiyaa 2, character Dheela from Shehzada and Bhool Bhulaiyaa 3 look like they are a part of the same choreography. Irrespective, we know that Kartik is the commercial face of this movie who's going to do a bunch of gags. So we know Rohan is a fraudster too who got lucky in making people believe he may have some divine powers, but I have to confess I did chuckle with the welcome callback. It's one of the few times I actually laughed or smiled just at the sheer nostalgia. I fear the integration of Tripti in this film is merely for glamour purposes, intended only to be a flower pot, as the romantic singles seem to be obvious cutaways from the place in which the film is set. एक फिल्म में राजकुमार को ठरकुल्ला बुलाया है और एक फिल्म में कार्तिक आर्यन को ठरकी. It seems like Tripti will not be obviously doing the major heavy lifting in this film, casually coming in and out for the romantic sequences and songs. Offering his services to Raktaghat, Rohan is introduced to the family dynamic of that household where Vijay Ras plays the patriarch, and I hope he is handed over some fun stuff to do because his comic timing is next level when given some cheeky one-liners. As the trio that call out Rohan's bluff are found even in this film, and were honestly quite underwhelming other than the funniest gag of the trailer where a portal stops them with the tudum Netflix sound. I did not really chuckle at any of the jokes, a sad case of just punchlines these days being dry in Hindi cinema. I don't know what has happened with the jokes, but why do they all sound like WhatsApp forwards or dad jokes? How is anything not landing from a comedic standpoint? But this is where the interesting part arises. What may have happened regarding the throne and the spirit of Manjulika? Who is Madhuri Dixit? Who is Vidya Balan if both of them are claiming to be Manjulika? Are they sisters who eyed the throne and were killed by the king? Were they lovers who were found to be in a doomed romance, banished and shunned and killed? If there is one thing I will be seated for is to see both the legends dance with one another, because that will be a sight to behold on the big screen. But why do they seem to be fighting each other later on? And why do I chuckle and laugh when both Madhuri Dixit and Vidya Balan are attempting to be spooky and scary? The expressions just disconnected me because it seems way too over the top. That itself is quite a feat, by the way, if you can make Vidya Balan and Madhuri Dixit come across as if they are overacting, because I did not even feel that at the slightest, even in the glimpse of Bhool Bhulaiyaa 2 and Tabu, even in the trailer before the release of the film. What do you think, however, may be the theory of their origin story and their pursuit for the throne? Because this seems to be the only interesting part about the trailer, and it can become the only saving grace of the film if it turns out to be actually interesting. I don't have a choice. I'm going to be seated for both the films this Diwali, but if you're a true Hindi cinema fan, you would be lying if you were 100% sure that both these films with their trailers promise to be knockouts. The skepticism is at its peak for both the films, and just like Singham again, and looking at life as a glass half full, all I can do is cross my fingers and hope for the best.